This is the second part of recording with Chairani Paul, and she's in the middle of telling her story. So go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Ragman. Yeah, that was about me going for first time to Yolanda and how, by the grace of God, with this family took me uh, when we just landed, took my passports, and with the whole family all together went to the immigration with all the policemen, and then they invite me to their house, and it was this beautiful house. They gave me dinner, and then at the end they asked for a taxi and spoke in their language to the taxi to bring me to Gilanda. And it was late at night. And I was so grateful to God that that happened. I was protected. Right? So when I arrived to Gilanda, I was like, wow, like my dad wanted so much to be here. And I was just doing it for him. And I didn't know where to go or what, and everybody was dark. And suddenly I saw this lady who I met in Australia. She was used to be a girlfriend of the Robis. And she came down, she said, "Oh, hi Rani." And I said, "Oh, Samara." And I said, "Wow." And she said, "I can't believe it." I said, "Wow, what happened?" So I was sleeping. I was sleeping and they told me to go down. And she went back to sleep, and they wake her up again, and they said to her to go down. And finally she followed the guidance and went to go down is with me. So that was everything like that in Gilanda. For me, Jakarta, Gilanda was very special time. I feel like it was like, I was guided with this umbilical light cord, where to go, how to go, and lots of experience and very protected there. Um, so I remember one day I ended up even in Ibu's Rahaju's house. And I was very, for me, I was quite special because when I met her in the Congress in Australia, I said I didn't like my name because everybody called me Chairani, and I don't like the cha. In Colombia, cha is quite strong. So she put my hand here and said, "It's hi Rani." And from that on, it like cannot really touch me. Uh, so I don't know how I ended up in her house. They let me to stay that night, and I was the next morning I was in this table writing to my parents about all this experience. That I feel like they guide me everywhere, like something invisible, where to go or to go. And and then I saw Papa's picture there, and he was showing like that. Yes, so I feel very close to Papa that way, right? And and I can't remember why I was ended up in Ibu's house, but I was participate in the archives in Uganda. That will visit me there for the 1,000 days. That was very special, like very touched. I'm blessed with 1,000 days, Papa. So anyhow, eventually we were able to get a visa. I arrived in 1990 in Australia, Sydney, and we got married in June 1990, Robbie and I. This year is going to be 36 years we've been married. We had two daughters, and the whole thing has been experience. We follow very much the guidance where God show us where to be. I became a helper in the Subud Sydney. I was very active. Again, many members came, and I was writing a lot to Ibu for names, and I was able to. She always answered to me. But for us, for Darobi and I, we always follow guidance, and then for us to got the moment that we need to, he felt lots of experience, and then he felt like he needs to go back to Vancouver when he born here. And I had a very good, it took a while, but I was able to get a job in my field and in communication and telephone systems. And then I had my first daughter in Sydney in 1994. And it was very interesting that to have the girls here in Australia. I became very fond of Australia. I brought my mom to look after my daughter, Alice. And somehow, one time that we felt that it was very important for me to visit his family because his mother died when he was very young, when he was 14. So I went to visit his aunt. In that visit that I did, I went to England, and one day was a congress in Europe. And I went one day and I saw Ibu Rahaj. I remember I was walking and Ibu, a meter away, she told me, "Oh, you the fly engineer." And I said, "No, Ibu, telecommunications engineer. I deal with phone systems." So I saw that she didn't understand. Anyhow, the interesting part was that pass, and then we had an experience, our family, to go back to Canada. But because I was able to get 3 months of my work, I was working in Australia as in telephone system, and I was 7 years with them, so I was able to get 3 months off. And that always daughter here in Vancouver was having a rough time, so said, "Well, we just visit the family." But that visit became for us to stay for good. That he had an experience with Tess and all that, and then we ended up moving for good to Vancouver. But when we moved to Vancouver, it was in 2008, and it was very hard for us, for all the girls, the family, because our timing here in Australia, it was very nice because we were in the South American community, going to dancing. The girls went to folklore dance, learn Spanish, so we had a very nice environment. So coming back to Vancouver was very rough for the family. So, and I remember I had to go back to Australia to support the family. So I had to go back after a year. We couldn't manage economy-wise. I had to come back to work here in Australia. And I remember was this, I did this Ramadan. And in Ramadan, in the middle of Ramadan, I was able to go back to my old job. And because of going back to my old job, I was able to go to the New Zealand Congress. I can't remember what year was the New Zealand Congress. And in that Congress, I brought my dad with me. And I remember I went to see Ibu. Everybody was in line up to talk to Ibu, and I wanted to line up to say thank you for all the names that she always gave to me with all these members. And again, 1 meter away from her, she she looked at me again and she said, "Oh, you the aircraft engineer." And suddenly I was like, ah, I remember when my youngest girl was 1 year old, Davida, she told me as a flight engineer. And I was like, what? So I was like kind of shocked. And then she went again to my left hand, touched like that and said, "But you were aircraft engineer." And I look at her and I said, oh, you know, I realized that was a receiving that she had about me. So that night, I remember I looked for Muti or Tuti and asked what Ivo tried to say. And they say, "Hairani, they see you working with airplanes and doing things." And I said, oh, wow. So I was like, you know, to me, it was like remarkable. So I was not able to straight away to, I tried in Australia to become in the Air Force, but I couldn't do it because I'm too short and they won't let someone too short. So I ended up being in, keep being in Australia. I became the chairperson in Subud, Sydney, Australia. We did a lot of activity, lots of experience, amazing. But then it finished and I had to do that job before I can go back to Canada. And that always said, remember, is the aerospace campus in Vancouver, in Richmond, where you can do your aviones course. So I did my aviones course. It was very, very, very strong, and flight controls and all that is very, it was like kind of tough for me. And I graduated in February 2017, and in March 2017 I got a job. The same like what happened in Colombia. I graduated in October and November in Colombia, where it's so difficult to find a job. And how here we are in Canada, I was able to get a job. To have graduate and do my job. So when I graduate, immediately I wrote to Ibu. Ibu, Ibu Rahajo, now I'm aviones aircraft maintenance engineer. She wrote me back, was like, wow, you know, is and I'm now 9 years working with Jazz Aviation. And for me, this job is very mechanical. It's like I call it is facing my fears. I'm small, I'm no big build, I'm strong, and it's very mechanical. As usual, all my jobs very male dominant, no ladies. So, and for me, it's like I love my job. I've been working very hard, and it's because it's a good job. So this job allow me to travel a lot, and every time I travel, I always visit Subud centers. So I always made a point to visit Subud. And when we moved here to Vancouver, the first time when we were very depressed, I couldn't understand why we had to come here. And one helper said, we should test what was the meaning of the family coming to Vancouver. And I remember one helper said that the girls will have the planet in their hands. So, and eventually with my work, my youngers, Davida, has been able to travel all around, you know. And it's been those experience going to Subu Group last year. I went to South America, I went to Uruguay. I do a lot of KG1 work remotely, virtual since the pandemic. In Vancouver, Tercera, Zoom Latihans. So I became very active helper remotely. So I went last year to Sao Paulo, Uruguay, Argentina to the Subud centers and members that we met in the pandemic in KG1 days. So I always talk very open to my daughters about my experience in Subud. I don't know why it's been so clear, and I'm very grateful to that. Uh, but I want to share something that happened with my daughter that she was able to see what I was talking about. Because when I told them about the experience in Gilanda, how everything was like kind of handed to me, we had the same situation. It was a youth congress in Cuba, Havana. It was Christmas time, but it was after the hurricane. And because with my work, I only able to travel if it's empty seats. If no empty seats, we cannot go. So at that time, everybody from Vancouver goes to Cuba in winter time, and it was December. I remember December 25th, my daughter and I were since 5 a.m. in Toronto, trying to get into airplane. All the planes were full, so we couldn't get. So the last airplane, we start doing another plan. Maybe we go to Montreal then. So I said to the lady, "If do you think we get a chance to get in?" And she said, "I don't know. Looks like it's a delay. Maybe you able to, because if these 5 people don't get in, you can get in." So yes, we were able to make it to the last airplane from Toronto to Havana. So when we arrived to Havana at 11 p.m., but we didn't have a place to stay, nothing, because we couldn't plan. With my type of work, we cannot plan. So Davida and I arrived there, and I saw this nurse, like someone dressed up in white, and I said to her, "Do you know where we can stay? We heard about this place." And she said to us, "You arrived to Havana, Cuba, and you don't know at 11 and you don't have a place to stay." I said, "No." So she said, "Wait, let me, I'm the nurse, a 24-hour service here in the airport. Let me call a friend or something, and you guys go. Do you have money for Cuban?" I said, "No." So go and get it. So anyhow, we went to the bathroom, and she came up and she said, "Look, I go a hold of my cousin. I had a place that I wanted to cousin Airbnb, and I can able to have you there." And then we organized the price. "But did you change money?" I said, "No." And it was a huge queue, like a queue for a block for changing money in Cuba and Havana. And then we went to the queue. But then she said, the nurse, the lady said, "I want to ask my boss if they let me to go out. Then I bring you to my house." So we were in the queue. She came there. She said, they let me go out. "So come with me." She put us in front of the queue, asked the guy to change us money, and then she organized a taxi already ready for us to go. Everything was like that. It's like kind of in a plate. And then Davida and I went with her to the taxi. I mean, I speak Spanish, so I was able to get, and she explained us. And it was in Havana Vieja. It's so beautiful, Havana Vieja. The people, it was, by that time, it was at 1 a.m. It's with music, with drums, the music. It was like the environment was so beautiful, very humble place. She let us to stay, and she went off, and we had a kitchen. Then I called the helpers, the members there, that we were able to get in the next day. So it was an activity to this place called Muraleando. So all these youth people came from Colombia, Mexico, USA, and then we were helping them to clean up the murals on the walls, and this area who was a tank that they were converted for art. So I was telling the helper, we really need to clean the area before these young kids do Latin, because I experienced in Mexico a lot of experience with the young kids that the place were not clean up. And then she couldn't understand was that important. I said, because it has to be prepared for space for doing Latin for these young people. So I did that because she, at the end, she came late. So all the places where we're going to be Latin, I asked Almighty God to clean anything who is no belong there, and only the place for us to do Latin and only Almighty God. So that time in Havana, all the young people joined together, worked together, paint, organize, help the community to get this place called Muraliando. Then Davida, my daughter, was like really touched by the whole experience. So I wanted to touch on that how if we, at the same time, we connect to the Latin, things can happen. And it was really beautiful time. Another experience that I want to share is about my other grandmother, my grandmother from my mom's side. When I was in Australia supporting the family, working to support them here in Vancouver, I had a dream about my grandmother that they want to take her the life support. And I said to my uncle, no, you can't do that. It's my grandmother. It's only until Almighty God. So I remember that was in February. In May was a very cheap flight to go to Colombia, and I went there. And when, for my surprise, Monica Ramirez, the lady, the helper again from school, was in Armenia. So straight away I went. I only had 1 week from my work from Australia. So every day I was going to my grandmother and we test at the Subud hall whether it's right for me to do the opening for my grandma. My grandmother, Rosa, very heavy Catholic. She very much against Subud, but I was very close to her. So we did the opening on her house, and it was very special opening. I said to her that we're doing a little prayer with her. I couldn't say Subu or anything like that because at that time she was 94 years old. So my other grandmother, when we did the opening words and God gave the grace, she was 97, and now my maternal grandmother was 94. So it was very beautiful, the opening. And in one time in the opening, she held my hand and she made me to bless her like that. And I couldn't take it out the hand, but I was shocked that she made me bless her instead being the opposite, because we always got asked the elders to bless us. And that was amazing. That was amazing. So I went back to Australia and all that. So I want to share this because with my two grandmothers, it's been very a special time. I don't know what connection is there because I was with them in the opening. That when after a year of being married in 1990 with Robbie, I had a dream in Sydney, Australia, when in this dream we were in Colombia in the house, that 3-story house, and my grandmother from my dad, they were there together with my granddad. And then she stood up like that and I said, oh, abuelitos, granddad, what are you doing here? How come you here? They didn't talk, they hold hands. I went straight to my parents' room. My dad, my mom, my sister, older sister, younger sister, we all together. And they keep going into the window, walking, and we were looking very strange. They came, like both of them together holding hands. And they turn around, looking at us through the window, already on the air. And my granddad and my grandma said goodbye and went like that. And it was so real, that dream, that I wake up. And when I wake up, I saw these circles, like kind of bubbles. And I said, where I am? And I saw the robe and I said, who is this? And then I realized it was a dream. But that day when I had the dream, my granddad died. And also my granddad got open in Subud from my dad's side. So that was, wow, for me, was very special. They came to say goodbye together. So when my mother's mother, Rosa, died, that was 8 months after she had the opening in Colombia. My sister called us and said, oh, grandma died. And I said to my mom, oh, better we do Latihan quick, because to be with her, to my grandma. And my mom said no. So I start doing Latihan, and I feel in this kind of tunnel. And then I experienced, she held my hand, and we were very, very strong in this tunnel. I'm looking finish tunnel. And she told me in the Latihan, please do it every hour. I said, every hour? I was sick at home that day. So I did it every hour for 5 minutes. And you experience different things, but always in the tunnel. At 1 p.m., I was so tired, and I slept, and I feel this hand going like that to me. You promised me every hour. Then I wake up, oh yes, abuelita, yes, grandma. So I did it every hour. Until 7 o'clock, people came, do Latihan in my house, South American people. And that time, she told me, now it's okay, do it at 12 a.m. I said, 12 a.m.? And at 11:30, my sister called from the funeral home. We saw my grandmother there. Then I understood. I was able to see her, and at 12 a.m. I did the Latihan again, whatever was willing her. And in that time, I felt I was in the tunnel, but very light. I was really flying. And boom, she went. She went. So that is another thing that for me, Subud has been very special. To be able to participate on the time of the openings and feel the experience and about them. So it's more things to tell, but I don't know if you want to ask me things or what time is it?
Well, I was curious if you ever told your husband about that experience,
Sorry?
the experience you had before about meeting someone pulling you up.
Oh yeah, therapy, yes. Yeah, I told him through those 2 weeks that we call each other. And he said that in those calls and that he was trying to get all the papers, he felt that I was already his wife. That he feels so close. And then what happened in Sydney, in Australia, then when he saw me, he said that he always saw me as a good person, and that's why he wanted to meet me. Yeah, so for the Robbie, it's been different. Like he said, I don't have the experience that you have, Hairani. So it's very different, but he's, for me, he's like kind of a big priest that embrace you and lift you up. But he's very diligent to his Latihan. He's not very social, he's quite shy, but very diligent in his Latihan. So that's why we feel like so connected now that I live in it work in another province quite far. We are in the Pacific. I work on the Atlantic. Is we always connected. I mean, his voice, for me, his voice, it gave me this inner peace. As long as I hear him, I feel peace. Yeah. So the girls also, they're very attached to the Robbie, like their best friend, like, because he has, to us, he has this inner peace that like content us. He hold us. And actually in Indonesia, I found out our names are quite similar, like Darobi, Hairani, and the meaning of the names they're um they put it in different. I don't know you heard they put it in different, like Dai means someone be great, and Robi means priest. She's a big priest, and Hairani Chai means someone be great, and Ani means eyes. So, wow. One of the secretariat explained us because I told them about the experience. And even I met Sudarto one day in Gilanda. And I was telling my experience that I got protected all the time with Darovi's previous partner, previous wife. It was very hard for us because the there's because I'm Colombian and you Western, they think you only want to be with a person because of being in another country, right? So it was a very hard time, and in Gilanda, when the 1,000 days of Bapak, every time she was around and I was with Arobi, I always fell down. Boom, trip, trip. And I went to Sudarto and I said, I just don't know what happened, but I was saying hello and I'm talking. And I explained that. And he said, Hairani, you have a two source like that, inner source, that they protect you. They protect you. So when that person is trying to directly look at you to indirectly have some sort of feelings, God protect you and then you calm down. And I feel that many times at my work because I work with the airplanes. It's quite dangerous. It's lots of things open and things like that. And I feel like sometimes kind of I almost fell down, but I don't get fell down. So I don't know if it's because of. I think it's because of being close to the Latihan, and I constantly try to be in a quiet state. I try to be in the right mind when I work. Maybe that's why I get protected. Because for me, everything is my babies. Like the cables are my babies, the instruments are my babies, the aircraft is my best friend, airports are my home, and all because of Ibu Rahajo. I'm very grateful to her for that guidance.
We're almost out of time again. Any last words before we go?
No, I just been grateful that finally I was able to do this, and that I hope the members in Subud keep diligent doing the Latihan, and anything can happen if we love ourselves, if we follow the guidance. It's not easy. Experience will come together with hardship, but it's part of the process because it's been tested to, for me, it's like, are you really able to have unconditional love even with your worst enemy? Because anyhow, at the end, we all been created to Almighty God, and then important to read Papa's talks. There's lots of guidance there to help you in the directions you need to continue, and ask God to have the courage to follow you receiving, because when you follow, huge miracles happen. Me from Colombia, no money, nothing, and to where I am is just because of Subud.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me too.